I think the question is, do we have a short panel and respond to questions? I think we have time to do that. And while the audience is coming up, Marty, just thank you so much for bringing up something about swine. I really appreciate that. And I was captivated by the microbial comment. I was called last week, the President McPherson of the American Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. They're forming a committee within APLU to look at this issue. We need your help. So we're here. Questions from the audience to any member of the panel. Don't be bashful. Question over here, and speak loudly. You might repeat the question.
Boy, I'm not sure I caught all that question, so let me just repeat what I thought I caught, and then you can tell me what I didn't catch, and we can go from there. So one of the questions is about the lack of contingency, the intermittent nature of a lot of renewable energy, and that's the case for solar and wind particularly, and yeah, we need to find better ways of storing energy. One of the reasons, frankly, I'm interested in plant material is it's both the collector and the battery. You know, plant material has your collectors out there, the leaves, and then it stores the solar energy in plant tissue. And I think that's kind of a unique feature compared with other renewable energy systems. But yeah, the storage issue is really important. Since I was so careful to stay within my 15 minutes, and not all of my colleagues were quite so conscientious, I'll take a minute here and tell you something that I didn't share. Now, maybe try not to cut into their time. In a lot of ways, and I realize this is being maybe a little self-interested, energy is the master resource. With enough energy, with enough cheap energy, we can grow food anywhere we want. We can produce all the nitrogen fertilizer we want. We can have all the mechanized agriculture we want. With enough energy, we can desalinate an ocean and provide and pump it anywhere. Okay? You can't, but we have grown up in an environment, most of us, all of us, in fact, and alive in this room, were born in the age of cheap oil, particularly. And we take unconsciously that the energy will be there. I'd like you to keep in mind the possibility, and I think it's a reality, but for a lot of people, this is very uncomfortable. So just keep in mind, an open mind, that the amount of energy that we've had in the future to do the things that we want to do, like ag mechanization, like irrigation, and so forth, simply may not be there or may be so expensive that it won't be possible to do. And I was struck by the fact that the irrigation requirements, the fossil energy, I started my career at Colorado State University, and the Ogallala was disappearing then, and the lift was being important there. So again, and maybe this will be my last depressing comment, and or last couple of depressing comments, I'll be able to say something more positive. We're not going to be more prosperous, I think, unless we have more energy. We can be more efficient in using the energy we have, but continually growing prosperity by as metric, using GDP as a metric, where's the energy going to come from to do that? Where's the ability to do the work going to come from to do that? I think diets will revert to less meat intensive because meat is a very heavy energy user. Long supply chains will become more vulnerable and less viable because energy is required to run those warehouses on wheels that we're told. Well, what's going to run the wheels is my question. There can be some interesting impacts on population where they may grow because of increased insecurity, and people have children to help provide in their old age because they're less secure about having someone to take care of in their old age, or they may crash because of resource issues. I'm concerned about failed trust undermining whole societies because what we have done is promise technological solutions where there in fact may not be technological solutions, and we in fact have to learn to live on a finite planet with finite resources and be better stewards of what we have instead of always looking for more places and more things to colonize and to conquest. And so again, that's sobering. Now, I'm also hearing deprived a little bit. What questions didn't I get in that long rambling? And I'll try to be positive. So.
One question was the use of tidal power, which is a continuous source around the world. If you don't bring that, getting an engineering solution and using that as a source.
So there's actually a lot more solar power, a lot more tidal power on the Earth than we currently use. The problems are the engineering problems are that it's diffuse and much of it's intermittent. And so so one of the things that means to me is that local energy solutions will increasingly dominate. We won't have quite so much imported energy, and you'll have to make use of what local energy is available to you. On a coast, you might use tidal power. If you're near a river, it's hydro. But I think in a lot of the intensive areas, and a friend of mine, Tom Richard at Penn State, and I are going to do an analysis about, and this is my last statement. I think ask other people questions. So the answer, people always ask me, well, Bruce, about biofuels, isn't that going to take land away from production and make us hungry, right? That's the food versus fuel issue. But I don't think we're going to go back to human beings pulling the plows themselves. We're going to use some animals, draft animals to do that work. And the question is, where are the animals going to get the fuel? They are also biofueled. You can take the oats and so forth and feed it to the horse or the oxen to do the work, or you can take that same plant material and convert it to liquid fuels and put it in a tractor. And so we're going to do the analysis, which approach is more land efficient. If you think I should be an ag engineer instead of a chemical engineer, you're probably right. But I'm stuck where I am. So Tom and I are going to do that analysis. We hope to publish it. But doing some back-of-the-envelope calculations that engineers like to do, it looks like it's about 3-to-1 favorable to actually have some degree of ag mechanization. About a third of the land would be required to run biofuel-powered agriculture if the biofuels are liquid fuels derived from the same acreage and then fed into a machine of some kind. And nicer for people too, right? I spent some time bucking hay on my grandfather's farm, and that experience is enough to convince you that you need ag mechanization. That's all I'll say. Thanks.
Ag mechanization, as I recall, was one of the 10 great accomplishments of the past century in agriculture. And having lived in the later, very late stages of manual agriculture, I appreciate that. I think you really ought to be an economist. Another question for the panel? Yes, over here.
Yes, this is for you too, Bruce. Made a compelling case for biofuels. My question is, do you see, and maybe you've got some optimistic statements here, do you see breakthrough in the cellulosic
Yeah.
conversion happening soon?
Yes, I actually think they've already happened, and what I think is the more important innovation that's needed now, I think we know how to convert biomass to fuels, cellulosic biomass to fuels. What we need is innovations in how to get the cellulosic biomass to the fuel production facility. It is because we're not going to get the economies of scale we need until we figure out how to make these bales, which are, basically air and water. We can't afford to move that very far. The transportation, the logistics kill you. So you need to figure out how to densify cellulosic biomass close to where it's grown, and then convert that energy content. But I actually think that the conversion processes are good enough now. What's not good enough is the logistics and supply chain. I mean, you can count on, if you want to convert corn to biofuel, you can put a market for 200, 300 million tons of corn. If you want to get a large amount, 1 million or 2 tons of corn stover, you can't do it. There's no markets. And so I think that's something we have to conquer first. But the fuel production, I think, has come a long way. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would generally suggest a personal observation of the 5 of you representing really the 5 grand challenges. Jim, I think hands down, climate change is probably the most political hot one. You sense that there'll be a time
You know, I relate the climate change political situation with that by tobacco, and that did change over time. It just took a long time to get there. I'm always an optimist, but it is going to take leaders, I think, from all political realms to come to grips with it. And as climate continues to change in ways that the models and the scientists are predicting, you know, sooner or later they're going to have to either be laughed off the stage when they start talking about that, or it will change. So when that will happen, I have no idea. But that's why I presented that first report there from the Bloomberg and I forgot the other authors' names, but Paulson, Bloomberg and Paulson and one other person, because Paulson's a Republican. Bloomberg is not, of course, but they work together on this. And we need more voices like that where they're bipartisan coming together. And I think also the public-private partnership will help in this political domain, because some of the private companies are gearing up. I mean, you saw the picture of Walmart. I think that was Marty's slide. They're realizing that this is important, and they have to do something about it. But in some states like Florida, for example, it's a real challenge. We work with local governments. They buy into it. Miami is being flooded when high tide comes just by sea level rise, and so they get it. But that hasn't reached all the way up to the state yet, so we're hoping that will continue. But it is an issue, and I think societies like ASABE can and should do a lot to help promote that.
I think if they want the issue of is it human-induced, it would be an easier topic to deal with. But the fact that human behavior, human impacts become part of the conversation, we don't like to talk about those kinds of things, and that makes it very difficult. Other question? Yes.
I'd ask all of you expert panelists, including Dr. Easter, how can ASABE and the ABE profession actually get involved in having a role in policy decisions? We want your suggestions, how we as a community can have a significant role in some of the policy decisions. Anybody and everybody.
Thank you. I think we have to start interacting with people that we don't normally interact with. I'll give you one explanation for that. Last year, I was invited to a meeting in Valencia, and it's actually organized by a think tank from the US here. And this was a group of very senior government officials in the past. And one of the members of the group said he had served about 23 years in Congress. And the question was about food security and then what the US government or institutions could do, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. And my proposition was that I think the whole issue of the way agriculture is practiced has been left to technology alone for a long time. And that the current farming systems or agricultural structure, where you have 80%, for example, of the people growing the food are growing on less than 1 hectare. And that population has all the worst statistics that you want to talk about in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of poverty, everything. And so the question then is, do you keep giving them the same level of support forever? Or do you help to develop a new vision of what agriculture can be and help to transform it? And so the congressman told me, he said, well, Linus, are you telling me that all the advice and all the presentations that have been made to me in Congress for the last 23 years are wrong? I said, but who have you been talking to then? So that's my point. It doesn't mean that I was right or wrong. The point was, who are you talking to and who are the people? So I think we need to start to identify particular key stakeholders and begin to find ways to engage with them. The conversation may not be initially technical, but it's a matter of creating platform to provide a diversity of options and then maybe we can make a difference.
I was waiting for someone else to jump in and maybe want to say after it. But so, what are engineers good at, right? Play your strengths, right? Numbers. Okay, we're pretty good at numbers, and we're pretty good at systems thinking. So, about 13 years ago, I became convinced that the cellulosic biofuels industry was actually going to happen in my lifetime. I saw enough trends and so forth. I said it's actually going to happen. So that the industry itself was going to happen, but I wasn't sure yet that we could make it sustainable. And so I got involved. I tried to figure out how you can quantitatively approach sustainability. What numbers can you use, and how can you do system thinking? And the tool there is actually it's not simple. It's life cycle assessment. A number of the speakers here today. So if I had something concrete to suggest to you, is learn how to do or learn how to appreciate life cycle assessment, which is putting numbers on various sustainability metrics that are important to you for a particular system. It's a very powerful discipline. It's something that needs to be taught more widely and certainly appreciated more widely, and it's the way that engineers should speak in policy circles, to lay out these are the metrics you can use to assess your system. Now, we'll help guide you through it, but this is the most complete, comprehensive look we can take using these metrics at this whole system. And I think it's very valuable. A number of the speakers pointed that out.
Time for one more.
I'll be very short. I'm really happy you pointed this out. And from a more water footprint perspective, in terms of how can your association can be more involved, the data, I think, is always very crucial. And I think you are holding a lot of data that can be very valuable to perform life cycle assessment, to develop the models. Good regionalized and reliable data is essential. And then to apply these methodologies and to use them to focus your effort in developing new technologies where the problem is the biggest, not necessarily to be skewed by what looks like the easy, low-hanging fruit, but sometimes to target where the problem is the largest and where the new technology can have the biggest influence.
We are precisely on time, I think, to wrap up. Is that okay? Yeah, this has been an incredible panel this morning. Each has brought unique and very well-informed perspectives to very complex issues, and I think they deserve a real round of applause for their work.